Hello and welcome back. I'm glad you found your way here again tonight. There's nothing you need to do right now except settle in and let your body grow heavy against the bed. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts loosen their grip on the day, the way a hand slowly opens. Tonight, we're going somewhere quieter than anywhere on land, down beneath the waves, into the vast, dark, largely unexplored world that covers most of this planet. The ocean, a place stranger and stiller than almost anywhere else you could imagine, holding more mystery in its deepest trenches than most people ever pause to consider. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you. Some of it may simply settle over you like a warm current, familiar and strange all at once. If any of this helps you unwind, consider subscribing to Drowsy with Facts so you can drift off with us again soon. For now, let's begin. The ocean covers far more of this planet than most people picture when they imagine the Earth. More than 70% of the surface you stand on is actually water, a vast blue skin stretched over the globe, so enormous that if all the land on Earth were gathered together and sunk beneath it, the ocean alone would still remain the dominant feature of the planet, quietly covering nearly everything. And yet, for all its size, the ocean remains mostly a mystery, even to the people who study it closest. More than 80% of it has never been mapped, explored, or even seen by a single human eye. We have, in some real sense, better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of our own ocean floor. A vast, dark unknown resting just beneath the surface of every wave. Down in its deepest point, a place called the Mariana Trench. The water presses down with a weight that's difficult to picture standing on dry land. The pressure there is so immense that it would crush an unprotected human almost instantly, over 1,000 times the pressure you feel standing at sea level. And yet even there, in absolute crushing dark, life quietly persists, patient and strange. That trench alone is deep enough to swallow Mount Everest whole, with over a mile of water still resting above its peak. It's almost impossible to hold that scale in your mind. An entire mountain, the tallest on Earth, disappearing completely into darkness with room to spare above it. Only a handful of human beings have ever traveled down to that deepest point. It has, in fact, been visited by fewer people than have walked on the moon, a place so remote and so hostile that reaching it remains one of the rarest journeys any person has ever made. In that deep, permanent darkness, where sunlight has never once reached, an enormous share of the creatures living there have learned to make their own light through slow chemical reactions inside their bodies. Countless deep-sea creatures glow softly, blink, or pulse, scattered through the black water like a slow, drifting galaxy that never sees the sky. Some of those creatures carry lures of glowing light directly on their own bodies, dangling it gently in the dark to draw curious prey close enough to catch. A small, patient trap glowing softly in a place with no other light at all. Even the color of light itself changes as you sink deeper into the ocean. Red light disappears first, swallowed by the water within just a few meters of the surface, followed slowly by orange, then yellow until only a deep, quiet blue remains, and eventually, further down still, nothing at all. Between the sunlit surface and the crushing black depths lies an enormous middle layer, sometimes called the twilight zone, where the light is faint and blue, and the water stretches on for thousands of feet. Far more life exists there than most people realize, hidden in a kind of permanent, gentle dusk. Each night, an enormous number of creatures living in that twilight zone rise slowly upward toward the surface, under cover of darkness, feeding quietly before sinking back down again before dawn. It's considered the largest migration of life on the entire planet, and it happens every single night, almost entirely unnoticed. The ocean is also far colder in most places than people tend to imagine. Away from the warm, sunlit shallows, much of the deep ocean sits at temperatures barely above freezing, a vast, dark, and quietly cold world stretching endlessly beneath the warmth of the surface. Even the water itself, far out at sea, holds a story about where it originally came from. Much of Earth's ocean is thought to have arrived long ago, delivered slowly over millions of years by ancient comets and icy asteroids colliding with the young planet, carrying their frozen cargo down into what would eventually become the sea. The salt dissolved in that water tells its own slow story too. Rivers, over countless centuries, have carried tiny amounts of dissolved minerals down from the land into the sea. And as ocean water evaporates again and again, that salt is left behind, gradually accumulating over millions of years into the salinity you taste today. Deep beneath the waves in certain volcanic regions of the ocean floor, scalding mineral-rich water spews upward through vents in the crust. Surrounded by entire communities of strange creatures that don't rely on sunlight at all. Instead, they draw their energy from the chemicals rising up from the Earth's molten interior, a form of life built entirely without the sun. Around some of those same vents, tube worms taller than a person sway slowly in the dark with no mouth and no stomach, surviving instead through a quiet partnership with the bacteria living inside their own bodies. A strange and patient kind of life found nowhere else on Earth. When a great whale eventually dies far out at sea, its body sinks slowly down to the ocean floor, and in doing so, it creates an entire temporary ecosystem, all its own. Scavengers arrive first, then smaller creatures that feed on what remains for years afterward, sometimes decades. A single quiet death becoming a strange, prolonged gift to the deep. The largest animal ever known to have existed isn't some ancient extinct creature, but one still swimming through the ocean today. The blue whale grows larger than any dinosaur that ever walked the earth, its heart alone weighing as much as a small car, beating slowly enough that a diver, in rare cases, has been able to swim alongside it and feel each distant pulse. That same enormous heart pushes blood through a body so large that a small child could, in theory, crawl through its largest blood vessels without touching the sides. A scale that's difficult to hold in your mind even when you picture it directly. Blue whales also produce some of the loudest sounds made by any living creature. Low rumbling calls that can travel for hundreds of miles through the water, carried efficiently by the ocean itself, allowing one whale to reach another across an entire span of open sea. Sound, in fact, behaves very differently underwater than it does in air. It travels roughly 4 times faster through water than through air, which is part of why marine mammals rely so heavily on sound rather than sight to navigate the vast, often murky world they live in. Some of the strangest creatures in the ocean live so deep and so far from light that they seem to belong to another planet entirely. One deep sea fish carries its own built-in fishing rod, a thin glowing filament dangling above its mouth, luring smaller fish close enough to swallow whole in the dark. Another deep-sea dweller, the gulper eel, has a mouth so large relative to its body that it can swallow prey far bigger than itself. An adaptation built for a world where meals are rare and opportunities can't be wasted. The colossal squid, rarely seen and still poorly understood, is thought to have the largest eyes of any creature on Earth, each one roughly the size of a dinner plate, built to gather every last trace of light in the permanent dark where it lives. Giant squid, its slightly smaller relative, remained essentially a myth for centuries, known only through torn carcasses and old sailors' tales, until the first confirmed photographs of one alive in its natural habitat were finally captured only in recent decades. Coral, for all its color and life, isn't actually a plant at all, but a vast colony of tiny animals working together, slowly building a stony skeleton beneath them over centuries. What looks like a single reef is really the shared patient architecture of countless small lives, layered one on top of another. The largest of these coral structures, the Great Barrier Reef, stretches so far along the coastline that it can be seen clearly from space. A massive living structure built entirely by creatures too small to see individually with the naked eye. Once a year in certain reefs, coral spawning happens all at once. A single synchronized release of eggs and sperm into the water under cover of night, timed with remarkable precision to specific phases of the moon, turning the sea briefly into a slow, drifting snowstorm of new life. Kelp, towering up from the ocean floor in cool coastal waters, can grow astonishingly fast, sometimes more than a foot in a single day, forming vast underwater forests, tall enough to shelter entire communities of fish and other creatures in their shifting, swaying canopy. Far out in the middle of the Atlantic lies a strange sea with no shoreline at all. The Sargasso Sea is defined not by any coast, but by slow, circular ocean currents that gather drifting golden seaweed into one enormous, quietly rotating patch of open water. Those same great currents circle the entire globe, carrying warm water from the tropics toward the poles and cold water back toward the equator in an endless, patient loop. A single drop of water caught in that current might take over 1,000 years to complete the full journey around the world. The coldest waters of the Southern Ocean are held in motion by the strongest current on Earth, one that circles endlessly around Antarctica uninterrupted by any continent, carrying more water than any other current on the planet in one continuous, freezing ring. Icebergs drifting through that cold water reveal only a small fraction of their true size above the surface. The vast majority of an iceberg's bulk remains hidden beneath the waves. An old truth that gave rise to the familiar phrase about only seeing the tip of something far larger. When seawater freezes into ice, it does something unusual. Most of the salt is pushed out during the freezing process, leaving briny, extra salty water to sink down beneath the forming ice, while the ice itself ends up far less salty than the water it came from. In a few rare places on the ocean floor, that same heavy, extra salty water gathers into strange pools that don't mix with the water around them, forming what looks almost like an eerie underwater lake, complete with its own shoreline, resting quietly at the bottom of the sea. Hidden beneath certain stretches of coastline, fresh water sometimes flows into the ocean, not through rivers on the surface, but through hidden underwater springs, seeping up from below the seafloor itself, an invisible freshwater current lost within the surrounding salt. The ocean floor itself is far from flat or featureless. An enormous chain of underwater mountains, longer than any mountain range on land, winds around the entire planet beneath the waves, much of it never seen by human eyes, quietly built by slow, volcanic activity in the permanent dark. In fact, the vast majority of all volcanic eruptions on Earth happen not on land at all, but hidden beneath the ocean's surface, erupting quietly into the deep, largely unnoticed and unseen, reshaping the seafloor one slow eruption at a time. Occasionally, that hidden volcanic activity breaks the surface entirely, rising up out of the sea to form brand new islands within just a few years. Bare volcanic rocks slowly becoming home to the first wind-blown seeds and the first quiet footholds of life. Whales and sea turtles alike undertake migrations across the ocean that are difficult to comprehend in scale. Certain whales travel thousands of miles between feeding and breeding grounds each year, while sea turtles born on a single stretch of beach may wander the entire ocean for decades before returning to that exact same shore. No one is entirely sure how those turtles find their way home again after so many years and so much distance, though many researchers believe they can sense the Earth's magnetic field directly, reading it like an invisible map imprinted in memory since the moment they first hatched. Some fish, too, are capable of astonishing journeys, swimming from freshwater rivers out into the open ocean and back again over the course of their lives, adjusting their entire bodies along the way to survive the dramatic shift between fresh and salt water. The ocean sunfish, one of the strangest looking creatures in the sea, is the heaviest bony fish known to exist, an enormous flattened giant that drifts gently near the surface, sometimes lying on its side as if simply resting in the sun. Far below, near the very bottom of the deepest trenches, scientists have found fish still able to survive despite the crushing pressure. Their bodies adapted with soft, flexible tissue and no true bones at all, built instead to bend gently under weight that would crush almost anything else. The wreck of the Titanic, resting on the ocean floor for over a century, lies at a depth so extreme and so cold that it has been preserved far longer than most shipwrecks, slowly succumbing instead to tiny organisms that feed patiently on its rusting metal, inch by inch, year by year. Very few human beings have ever traveled down to see it directly. Far more people have stood on the summit of Mount Everest than have ever laid eyes on the wreck resting quietly in the permanent dark of the North Atlantic. Even sound recorded from the deep ocean has, at times, created genuine mystery. One especially loud, strange sound picked up by underwater microphones years ago puzzled scientists for years before being traced eventually to the slow, massive cracking of Antarctic ice, echoing for thousands of miles through the water. The ocean, more than anything else on Earth, quietly regulates the planet's temperature, absorbing an enormous share of the sun's heat and carrying it slowly around the globe. Without that vast, patient blue engine working beneath the waves, the difference between a summer afternoon and a winter night would feel far harsher than the one you've always known. Deep ocean currents move not just because of wind and tide, but because of tiny differences in temperature and saltiness, sinking dense cold water in one part of the world and slowly pulling warmer water in to replace it elsewhere. A vast, slow-moving engine of water that never truly stops. Waves themselves, rolling gently or crashing against a distant shore, are mostly just energy passing through water rather than the water actually traveling forward. A single drop of water caught in a wave mostly moves in a slow circle, in place, rising and falling, rather than journeying all the way to the beach. Tsunamis, by contrast, are something else entirely. Vast walls of moving water triggered by sudden shifts on the ocean floor, capable of crossing entire oceans at the speed of a jet plane while remaining barely noticeable out in open water, only rising to their full terrible height as they reach shallow coastlines. The pressure in the deepest parts of the ocean is so extreme that submarines built to explore it must be engineered with walls thick enough to withstand forces that would instantly crush almost any ordinary structure. A delicate balance between strength and the ability to descend at all. Only 3 vehicles in history have ever carried people down to the very deepest point of the ocean, each journey requiring years of careful engineering, and each one returning with images of a world so remote that it remains, even now, one of the least witnessed places on the entire planet. Beneath the waves, entire underwater cave systems wind through certain coastlines, carved slowly over thousands of years, some connecting freshwater springs to the sea itself, quiet flooded passageways that few people have ever explored in full. The ocean also holds an enormous, invisible reserve of carbon, quietly absorbing a significant share of it from the atmosphere above, drawn down slowly through tiny drifting organisms and the endless, patient cycling of water between surface and depth. Those same tiny organisms, called phytoplankton, drift by the trillions across the sunlit layer of every sea, and together they produce a substantial share of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere, quietly outworking entire forests without ever being seen by a single human eye. Jellyfish, some of the oldest creatures still living in the ocean today, have drifted through the seas in a similar shape for hundreds of millions of years, predating even the dinosaurs by an enormous stretch of time, calmly persisting through every age the planet has passed through since. Certain jellyfish are almost entirely made of water, so transparent that they're nearly invisible except for a faint outline catching the light, drifting quietly through the current like a living piece of the sea itself. One particular species of jellyfish is even capable, under the right conditions, of reverting its own cells back to an earlier stage of life, essentially aging backward. A strange biological trick that has earned it a reputation as biologically immortal, at least in theory. Octopuses, among the most intelligent creatures in the ocean, are capable of solving puzzles, opening jars, and even in captivity, recognizing individual human faces, all while possessing 3 separate hearts and blood tinted blue instead of red. That blue blood exists because octopuses rely on a different molecule than humans do to carry oxygen through their bodies, one built around copper rather than iron, perfectly suited to the colder, lower oxygen waters many of them call home. Some octopuses are capable of changing not just their color, but the actual texture of their skin in an instant, mimicking the surrounding rock or coral so precisely that a predator or a curious diver might drift right past without ever noticing them at all. Sharks, some of the oldest surviving predators on Earth, have existed in recognizable form for hundreds of millions of years, quietly outlasting multiple mass extinctions that erased the vast majority of species living alongside them at the time. Despite their fearsome reputation, most sharks pose little threat to humans at all, and far more people are injured each year by everyday household accidents than by any encounter with a shark in the open sea. Certain deep-sea sharks move so slowly and live so long that some individuals alive today may have been swimming through the dark since before recorded history began. Among the longest-lived vertebrates known to science, the Arctic and Antarctic oceans, despite their brutal cold, are far from empty or lifeless. Beneath the ice, a surprising abundance of life persists, adapted to temperatures that would be fatal to almost anything else, thriving quietly in some of the most hostile water on the planet. Certain fish living in those freezing waters carry a kind of natural antifreeze in their blood, a protein that prevents ice crystals from forming inside their bodies, allowing them to swim comfortably through water cold enough to freeze most other creatures solid. Penguins, though built for the cold surface and ice above, are extraordinary swimmers below the waves, capable of diving to depths and holding their breath for lengths of time that would be impossible for almost any other bird on Earth. Seahorses, delicate and slow-moving, are among the only species on the planet where the male carries the developing young, tucked safely inside a specialized pouch until they're ready to be released into the open water on their own. The ocean floor, in places untouched by light or storm for millions of years, preserves a strange kind of stillness, sediment settling undisturbed layer by layer, quietly recording a patient timeline of the Earth's history in mud and stone. Some of that sediment holds the fossilized remains of creatures long extinct, carried down slowly from the surface over unimaginable stretches of time, resting now in complete darkness, undisturbed by anything except the occasional curious explorer. The ocean also holds vast, mostly untouched mineral wealth scattered across its floor, nodules of metal slowly formed over millions of years, resting quietly in total darkness far from any hand that might ever reach them. Waves crashing against a rocky coastline may seem chaotic, but they follow patterns shaped by distant storms, sometimes traveling for thousands of miles across open water before finally breaking gently or violently against a shore that never saw the storm that made them. The tides themselves, rising and falling along every coastline on Earth, are pulled gently by the distant gravity of the moon and, to a lesser extent, the sun, a slow rhythm repeating twice a day. So reliable, it has guided sailors and shorelines alike for as long as anyone has kept record. In certain narrow coastal channels, that same tidal pull can create powerful, swirling currents strong enough to form visible whirlpools, brief and dramatic reminders of just how much force lies quietly behind the ocean's usual calm. Some of the largest tidal changes on Earth occur in specific bays shaped just right to amplify the pull of the moon, where the difference between high and low tide can be tall enough to swallow a multi-story building twice a day. The deep sea, for all its darkness and pressure, is also remarkably quiet in a way the surface rarely is. A vast hush broken only occasionally by the distant call of a whale or the faint creak of shifting water pressure far above. And yet, if you listen closely enough with the right instruments, the ocean floor itself carries a faint, constant hum produced by the endless motion of waves pressing against the seabed far above, too low and too soft for any human ear to hear directly. Storms passing over the open ocean can churn the water so violently that their energy reaches down far below the surface, stirring nutrients up from the depths and setting off blooms of tiny, drifting life that can be seen clearly even from space. The ocean's true color, that deep, endless blue, comes largely from the way water absorbs and scatters sunlight, absorbing the warmer colors first and reflecting the cooler blue back toward the surface. The same patient physics, repeated across every sea on Earth. Near river mouths where fresh water spills into the salt sea, a visible line sometimes forms where the two different waters meet and slowly mix, a soft, shifting boundary between two entirely different worlds sitting side by side. Some of the largest gatherings of life in the entire ocean occur where cold, nutrient-rich water rises up from the depths to meet the sunlit surface, drawing enormous numbers of fish, birds, and whales to feast in waters that were empty just days before. The ocean surface, so often calm and steady to the eye, hides currents moving in complex layered patterns beneath it. Water flowing in one direction near the top, while an entirely different current moves quietly below, unseen and unfelt from above. Even now, new species are still being discovered in the ocean at a remarkable pace, far more quickly than on land, a quiet reminder of just how much of this hidden blue world remains completely unknown to us. Somewhere in the vast, unexplored dark, scientists believe there may be entire species yet to be found, drifting through trenches and canyons deeper than any human has ever traveled, waiting patiently, in a sense, to someday be seen. Long before any of this was mapped or measured, sailors already sensed that the ocean held more than open water. Ancient maps often left its farthest reaches blank or filled with imagined monsters, a quiet admission that no one yet knew what truly lived beyond the edge of what had been charted. It wasn't until relatively recently in human history that anyone attempted to measure the ocean's true depth directly. Early sailors lowered weighted ropes by hand, foot by foot, into water so deep that the rope itself would sometimes run out entirely before ever touching bottom. A slow, patient way of learning just how little was actually known. The deep scattering layer, a vast shifting band detected by early sonar operators, puzzled scientists for years. It appeared on instruments as something like a false ocean floor, rising and falling with the time of day, until researchers finally realized it wasn't rock or sediment at all, but an immense, moving layer of living creatures drifting together through the twilight depths. Beneath the surface, sound doesn't just travel efficiently. It travels along a very specific hidden channel, a layer of water where temperature and pressure combine to trap sound waves and carry them for enormous distances with barely any loss. Whales are thought to use the same channel to call across entire ocean basins, and for decades, militaries quietly used it too, listening for the faint signatures of distant vessels. Whales themselves carry a strange and quiet history. Long ago, their ancestors lived on land entirely. Four-legged creatures that gradually, over millions of years, returned to the sea, their legs shrinking, their bodies stretching and smoothing until they became the creatures gliding through the deep today. In a real sense, every whale carries a distant memory of dry ground in its bones. Dolphins, close relatives of whales, sleep in a way no human ever could. Only one half of their brain rests at a time, while the other half stays alert, keeping watch and controlling breathing, allowing them to rise to the surface for air even while deeply asleep, half awake and half dreaming at once. Orcas, moving through the ocean in tight family groups, are believed to pass down knowledge across generations, distinct hunting techniques, and even unique calls that differ from one pod to the next. Quiet dialects passed patiently from mother to calf like an old spoken language. The narwhal, often called the unicorn of the sea, carries a single, long, spiral tusk that is in truth an oversized tooth, thought to be sensitive enough to detect subtle changes in the water around it. A strange and elegant tool wrapped in centuries of myth. Manta rays gliding slowly and gracefully through open water are among the most intelligent creatures in the ocean, capable, in some studies, of recognizing themselves in a mirror, a rare trait shared by only a small handful of species on Earth. Sea otters floating calmly on their backs near rocky coastlines are among the few animals known to use tools, cracking open shellfish with a carefully chosen stone balanced carefully on their stomachs. Small patient ritual repeated for every meal. Certain fish have formed quiet partnerships with one another that last for generations. Small cleaner fish set up what almost function like stations along the reef, where larger fish arrive and wait patiently to be gently cleaned of parasites. An old mutual trust repeated endlessly across the reef. Clownfish, nestled safely among the stinging tentacles of sea anemones, have developed a natural resistance that allows them to live there unharmed, trading shelter and protection for the small scraps of food and cleaning they offer their host in return. Flying fish, startled by predators below, can launch themselves entirely out of the water and glide for remarkable distances on stiff, wing-like fins, skimming just above the surface before slipping back beneath the waves. The anglerfish, already strange for its glowing lure, holds an even stranger secret in how it reproduces. In several species, the much smaller male permanently fuses to the body of the female, their tissues slowly merging together until he becomes little more than a small, attached source of continued reproduction for the rest of her life. Vampire squid, despite the name, are gentle, slow drifting creatures living in the deep twilight zone, feeding quietly on falling debris rather than hunting, wrapping themselves in a dark, cloak-like webbing when startled, rather than fleeing at speed. The giant Pacific octopus, one of the largest of its kind, can squeeze its entire soft body through gaps barely wider than its own eye, since the only truly rigid part of its body is that small, hard beak tucked beneath its arms. Whale sharks, despite their enormous size, feed only on some of the smallest life in the ocean, filtering plankton and tiny fish through enormous open mouths as they drift slowly along. Gentle giants that pose no threat at all despite their scale. Tube worms living near hydrothermal vents can grow remarkably quickly for such a strange environment, and some are thought to live for well over a century, standing patiently in the dark currents near vents that could, at any time, shift or fall silent entirely. Hydrothermal vents themselves were only discovered by chance. found by researchers exploring the ocean floor near the Galapagos Islands decades ago, who were astonished to find thriving communities of life clustered around scalding, mineral-rich water in a place previously assumed to be nearly lifeless. That single discovery quietly reshaped an entire field of science, proving for the first time that life didn't need sunlight at all to exist, only energy, patience, and the right chemistry. A lesson that has since changed how scientists imagine the possibility of life elsewhere in the universe entirely. The mid-ocean ridge, the vast underwater mountain chain circling the globe, stretches for tens of thousands of miles in total, far longer than the Andes, the Rockies, and the Himalayas combined, almost all of it resting quietly beneath the waves unseen. Cold seeps, similar in spirit to hydrothermal vents but far gentler, release slow, steady streams of methane and other chemicals from the seafloor, supporting their own quiet communities of clams, worms, and bacteria, thriving in the cold dark without any volcanic heat at all. Marine snow drifts constantly through the deeper parts of the ocean, a slow, endless fall of tiny organic particles sinking from the sunlit layers above, feeding countless creatures below in a quiet, unhurried rhythm that never truly stops. The continental shelf, the shallower stretch of ocean floor closest to land, holds a disproportionate share of all marine life, sunlight reaching easily down to nurture it before the seafloor eventually drops away steeply into the vast, darker basin beyond. At certain calm moments, usually at dawn or in sheltered bays, the surface of the ocean can grow so still and so smooth that it becomes almost perfectly reflective, mirroring the sky above so precisely that it becomes difficult to tell where the water ends and the clouds begin. Moonlight falling across calm, open water creates a long, shimmering path, stretching from the horizon toward the shore, an old and quiet sight that has guided and comforted sailors for as long as anyone has kept written record of the sea. Certain shallow lagoons, warmed gently by the sun and rich with the right microscopic life, glow with such strong bioluminescence at night that waves themselves seem to break in soft blue light. And even a single footstep in the shallows can leave a brief, glowing trail behind it. Krill, small and easily overlooked, exist in such enormous numbers across the world's oceans that their combined weight is thought to be greater than that of almost any other animal species on Earth, quietly supporting entire populations of whales, seals, and seabirds above. The Coral Triangle, a region of ocean stretching between several Southeast Asian nations, holds a greater variety of coral and reef life than anywhere else on the planet. A dense, ancient center of marine biodiversity that took millions of years to accumulate. Sea level itself has not always sat where it does now. During past ice ages, so much of the world's water was locked away in vast glaciers that the ocean sank low enough to expose land bridges between continents, paths that ancient humans and animals once quietly walked across. Beneath certain areas of frozen Arctic seafloor, methane remains trapped in a strange ice-like form, stable only under specific conditions of cold and pressure. A vast, quiet reserve resting undisturbed in the dark for thousands of years at a time. The saltiness of the ocean isn't uniform everywhere. Some enclosed seas, warmed heavily by the sun with limited flow in or out, grow far saltier than the open ocean, while others, fed steadily by rivers and rain, stay noticeably gentler and less salty by comparison. Between the warmer surface water and the cold depths below lies a sharp, invisible boundary called the thermocline, where temperature drops suddenly over a short distance, a quiet line that many marine creatures rarely cross in either direction. Migrating gray whales undertake one of the longest journeys of any mammal on Earth, traveling thousands of miles each year between icy feeding grounds and warmer waters where they give birth, an ancient route repeated faithfully across countless generations. Sea turtles, ancient travelers in their own right, have swum through Earth's oceans in a form barely changed for many millions of years, quietly outlasting entire eras of history that came and went around them. Tide pools left behind along rocky shorelines as the ocean briefly retreats form small, self-contained worlds of their own, sheltering tiny crabs, anemones, and fish that must survive the daily rhythm of being submerged, then briefly exposed to open air. Some of the oldest continuously living structures on Earth are ancient reef systems, built slowly over thousands of years by countless generations of coral, layer upon layer, a patient architecture far older than almost anything else still growing today. The ocean's true stillness is rarely absolute. Even in the calmest, most windless conditions, gentle currents continue moving quietly below the surface, carrying nutrients, warmth, and countless small lives along paths that never fully stop. Long before satellites or sonar existed, one voyage proved for the first time just how vast the ocean truly was. When a small fleet of ships set out to sail all the way around the world for the first time, only one battered vessel eventually returned, having crossed oceans that, until that moment, no one had ever fully measured firsthand. Horseshoe crabs, drifting along shallow coastlines today, have remained almost unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, quietly outlasting the dinosaurs and nearly everything else alive during their earliest days. Their pale blue blood, unusual in its chemistry, has even been used by researchers to help detect contamination in medicine, a strange and gentle gift from one of the ocean's oldest survivors. Sea sponges, simple and unmoving, are thought to be among the very first animals to ever exist, so ancient that they appeared long before almost any other form of life we'd recognize today. Without a brain, without muscles, without even distinct organs, they've still endured, quietly filtering water on the seafloor for longer than most other lineages of life combined. Down in the deepest, coldest parts of the ocean, giant isopods drift slowly across the seafloor, distant relatives of the small pill bugs found on land, grown remarkably large in the cold, food-scarce dark, moving with the same unhurried patience as everything else living down there. Sea cucumbers, soft and slow-moving, perform a quiet but essential task along the ocean floor, feeding on decaying material and recycling it back into the ecosystem. A gentle, overlooked kind of housekeeping repeated endlessly across the seabed. Barnacles, though they appear still and rock-like, begin their lives drifting freely through open water as tiny larvae, before eventually settling permanently onto a rock, a hull, or even the skin of a whale, anchoring themselves for the rest of their lives to whatever surface they happen to land on. Some of the deepest diving animals on Earth aren't fish at all, but air-breathing mammals. Sperm whales are capable of diving over a mile beneath the surface in search of prey, holding their breath for well over an hour at a time, descending into darkness far beyond where any sunlight could ever reach. Elephant seals dive nearly as deep, spending the vast majority of their lives beneath the surface rather than on land, surfacing only briefly between long, patient dives into the cold and the dark. Fish traveling in schools move with a kind of synchronized grace that still isn't fully understood. Thousands of individuals shifting direction together in an instant, as though sharing a single, unspoken thought. A fluid, shimmering motion built from nothing more than instinct and the quiet awareness of their nearest neighbors. Remoras, trailing calmly alongside sharks and rays, attach themselves gently using a specialized disc on top of their heads, hitching a slow, effortless ride across the ocean while feeding on scraps left behind by their much larger companions. The ocean's calmest moments often come not at the height of day, but in the hush just before dawn, when wind and current briefly settle, and the whole surface seems to hold its breath before the world above begins to wake. Even now, drifting somewhere beneath a wave near you or on the entirely opposite side of the planet, countless small lives are continuing their same slow rhythms, entirely unaware of anything beyond their own quiet corner of the sea. Certain fish sleep in ways almost as strange as the ocean itself. Some wedge themselves gently into crevices in the reef before resting. Others drift slowly in place, barely moving, while a few even produce a thin, protective layer of mucus around themselves each night. A soft, private cocoon built fresh before every rest. Coral reefs, though delicate, have shown a quiet, patient resilience across their long history, recovering slowly after damage the same way they were built in the first place, one small, careful addition at a time, year after year. A very old kind of patience written into their very structure. The deepest parts of the ocean remain colder, darker, and stranger than almost anywhere else you could travel on this planet. And yet life has found its way into nearly every corner of it, adapting patiently to conditions that would seem at first impossible to survive at all. Even the sand resting quietly on a distant seafloor carries its own slow history, worn down over centuries from shell, coral, and stone, carried by currents and settled softly into place, grain by grain, long before it ever became the sand beneath anyone's feet. Somewhere right now in a part of the ocean untouched by any light at all, something ancient and unhurried is simply continuing to exist the way it has for longer than anyone could easily measure, needing nothing from the surface above to carry on. And the tide, wherever you are tonight, is doing exactly what it has always done, rising, falling, rising again, a slow and steady rhythm that never once has needed anyone awake to keep it going. And somewhere within all of that vastness, and possibly small against the scale of it all, is you, resting quietly on the surface of a planet mostly covered by water you may never fully see, held gently by the same patient tides that have risen and fallen since long before you were here at all. The same ocean that hides trenches deeper than mountains and creatures stranger than most imaginations reach is, right now, simply moving quietly somewhere far away while you rest. The tide is rising somewhere, a whale is calling somewhere, low and slow, across the dark. And none of it needs anything from you right now except your rest. You've drifted tonight through sunlit reefs and crushing trenches, past glowing creatures with no name you'll ever know, along currents that circle the whole earth in patient, endless loops. The whole vast, quiet ocean, resting beneath the world you know, patient and old and endlessly moving. Let it hold you now, the way it's always held everything else. Let your breathing settle into its own slow rhythm, the way the tide settles against the shore. There's nowhere else you need to be. Nothing else you need to understand tonight. Just this quiet ocean and this quiet rest, moving gently together in the dark. Sleep well, and I'll see you next time for another 100 facts, drifting softly into sleep.